Planning Board for the town of East Hampton. You're live on the air and you're being recorded.
Thank you very much. Good evening and welcome to the December 1st, 2021 meeting of the East Hampton Town Planning Board. We have a number of matters on for a work session. The subdivision review of Wainscott Commercial Center will be the first matter. And after that, we have a number of site plan review matters. We have no public hearings on for tonight. And we have one or two resolutions which we'll take care of at the end of the evening. Wainscott Commercial Center, I'm looking to see Mr. Egan. There's Mr. Egan. Good evening. How are you? And so we'll get started with that. Eric Shantz, we have all our professionals online right now.
Excuse me, Chairman. Marco Wu is joining this moment.
Oh, very good. Okay.
Yes, it appears we do. We have Ben Cansemi from FPM Group, Ray Tobias from LK McLean, and Daniel Russo, outside counsel.
Okay, very good. Let me just ask Mr. Egan, do you have anybody, any consultants with you tonight?
No, it was our understanding that we were not going to have any substantive discussions this evening.
That's fine. I have the consultants available in case the board members have any questions for them while we're going through. Just so that we're clear, I'm going to give Mr. Shantz whatever he needs, 10 or 15 minutes, if that long, to go through the resolution on the EIS. I'll give you 10 minutes. Is that going to be sufficient for you?
Yeah, I don't think we need much time at all, unless something comes up that we're not anticipating.
All right, very good. I just want to, make sure that you have as much time
I
as you need.
appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. And then after that, the board will have a discussion, and I presume we wouldn't hold it till the end. We'll do a vote. We won't wait for the regular meeting. Proceed directly to a vote. So with that, Sharon, do I see you there? I'm looking. Okay. All right, let's go right ahead, Eric.
Okay. So I'm sure, as everybody knows, the board has been discussing this multiple times over the past few months. The order of business is to determine whether or not the draft environmental impact statement that's been submitted by the applicants is complete or incomplete. Now, what you do have also for tonight is a resolution that deems the DEIS incomplete. And I will reiterate that the board, the original review of the draft environmental impact statement was in October of last year. And then the board the applicants resubmitted the draft environmental impact statement. And the board has discussed this, as I said, in a number of recent meetings, including October 27th, November 3rd, and November 17th, which was the board's previous meeting. So again, the order of business is to determine whether or not the DEIS is incomplete or complete. When you first reviewed the DEIS in, as I said, October of last year, the board put out a memorandum that had a number of bullet points. Those included items that were brought up by the planning department as being incomplete aspects of the DEIS based on the adopted final scope. It also included bullet point comments of incomplete or outstanding items from Ben Cansemi in particular of FPM Group, who's reviewing the soil and groundwater issues, as well as Ray Tobias from LK McLean and Associates, who is reviewing the traffic impacts of the proposed subdivision. Again, to reiterate, this is a 50-lot commercial industrial zone subdivision, as everybody knows, at the Sandpit Wainscott. So, the board raised many concerns at its review of the initial review of the document. The applicants resubmitted that document. Again, we reviewed this recently a number of times. The resubmitted DEIS was dated August 30th of this year. So since that time, where the board's been. So I guess I'll say, I'll start with the applicants resubmitted the document in late August of this year. Again, the board has reviewed this 3 times already previously. The order of business under SECRA, under the law, is to identify, to go through the list of items that were originally identified as incomplete and outstanding, and identify whether or not the resubmitted document has satisfied any of those incomplete elements, and work towards getting a complete document, which once you do have a, DEIS draft environmental impact statement that you find complete, that will begin the public comment portion, another public comment portion during the process. But basically, unless something new is brought up in the resubmitted document that identifies an outstanding item, the board's charge under SECRA here is to work through that list of identified outstanding items in order to direct the applicants as to what information they still need to provide so that eventually we can get a complete draft environmental impact statement. So with that being said, again, you have a resolution in front of you tonight, and the applicants know that this resolution identifies the draft environmental impact statement as incomplete for a number of reasons. These are essentially verbatim items that were included in that original memorandum from October of last year. Some of them have been changed slightly, but for the most part, it is a process of elimination, and some of those issues have been deemed addressed during the time that the applicants resubmitted again in late August of this year. Myself, the applicants, and our 2 consultants, again, that's FPM Group and LK McLean and Associates, have been discussing this, obviously, with the board, as you know from those meetings, but also with the applicants to work through what items would need to be submitted to get closer to a complete document. Again, I believe it's not a surprise to anybody that there are still some outstanding items, but we have been trying to work with the applicants to identify those and point them in the right direction so that they can be responsive. They have been responsive to a number of them. I guess I will start out with what I believe is the most impactful or important. Obviously, there are a lot of important aspects to a project of this scale, but the applicants worked with Ben Kanseme, who you can see is here tonight from FPM Group. The board had stated that they absolutely wanted to see, and this was under the direction of your consultant, they wanted to see additional soil testing and groundwater testing in the area known to be have been previously used by firefighters for drills, and it's suspected that the use of firefighting foams, which may contain PFAS and other chemicals, were used. So that, as you know, was a little bit of a back and forth. The applicants have submitted a work plan, which is attached to the document that you should have all received. I will say that the resolution, this resolution is crafted. I'll speak to just the way that it's laid out. There's a resolution, which is your standard legal resolution, whereas the board reviewed the application on this date, whereas the applicant submitted the DEIS, et cetera, coming to the conclusion that it's still incomplete. But then it says, for the reasons listed in Schedule A. Now, again, Schedule A is essentially a pared down list of that October memorandum from last year. You will see that there's an addition. So I should say the version of this document that was posted online this past Friday for the public and the board to review. This is a living document. We have been working on it all since the resubmitted DEIS was received. We've been working on it Friday, Monday, Tuesday of this week, today. So I did send out today the most updated version that hopefully you all have received. I sent it out around 10:30 this morning. So that is a little bit pared down as well from what is posted online. But I will get to what I believe is the most important part here, which is you should see on the document that was posted online. Now, actually, I shouldn't say that. The document that was posted online, I'll be honest, I don't remember if it had the Schedule A, which was the work plan, which, as I said, to go back to it, and I'm sorry, I'm not being as direct in line of the events here as possible, but the board wanted further soil and groundwater testing. The applicants have agreed to do that. They agreed to submit a work plan that would be reviewed by FPM Group to see if it was adequate and sufficient. They have reviewed it. They have informed myself and the applicants and the board that they feel that it is adequate. That work plan is identified as Schedule A1 on the attached to the resolution document. Excuse me. So really that's where the board is right now. I think what you need to do is review the most recent document, which again is the one that I sent to you this morning. I have it right here. I can screen share if that makes it easier for everybody to go through it. I have every other document that was submitted from the DEIS, and the board should review that and determine whether or not you feel that reflects accurately what you still feel are the incomplete elements of the DEIS. And then you are reminded that SECRA does mandate a time frame by which you inform the applicants of whether or not the document, the DEIS, is still incomplete. They have granted an extension from that time frame. So I believe the board is required to adopt this document, whether it be as is was sent to you or edited this evening. So with that, I don't know if Sam, if you want to go to the applicant, or if maybe you want to hear Ben Cansemi and or Ray Tobias speak about just what they've been involved in as we've been refining the document.
Well, actually, I'll leave it to the applicant. Would you like to hear from the planning board's consultants and then comment, Mr. Egan, or do you want to go now?
It's a matter of indifference to me. We have a full understanding of what's here, how it got here, and we agree with this document. So,
okay,
you can proceed whatever you think is to your benefit. But we've been very happy and grateful for the cooperation of the board's consultants with ours, and we think we've covered as much as we can, and we think we have a very good understanding based on our discussions on what we need to do going forward, and we have a high degree of confidence that we'll be able to achieve that. So we think we're in the place where we should be right now.
That's terrific. In that case, I'll let Mr. Cansemi and Mr. Tobias, Ray, sorry about that, Ray, speak, and then again, if you want to come back and say anything else.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Okay, Ben, no, Ray, whoever wants to go first. Ben, you're muted. Are you all right? Hi, Ray.
All right.
All right.
Ray, you want to start?
That's fine with me. We talked about the Schedule A. Originally, there were more traffic items. Again, Schedule A relating to the completeness of the DEIS. At the end of Schedule A now, there are 6 items in terms of traffic that either were not addressed in the right way or needed to be addressed. A lot of them are technical. Some involved full printouts of the traffic analysis. Others involved components or inputs into that analysis. Also, we talked about Wainscott Northwest Road access, and that trucks could turn left coming out of the development and head south down Wainscott Northwest Road, which in that portion is primarily residential. Again, during construction, we noted that the volumes during construction should be consistent with the actual anticipated traffic volumes on the site as buildings are constructed. That should be added as well to emphasize that there is some concern about traffic impact of this development on the local road network.
Yeah, not just Northwest Road, but the other roads that are to, most particularly the immediate west of the site and across Northwest Road. Okay.
Right.
Do any other members have any questions for Ray regarding the traffic impacts and the treatment of that in the resolution?
Yeah, I still don't know what the status of Hedges Lane is. And if it is a private road, if it requires the consent of the lot owners for the applicant to use it for access. So I think we need to have the answer to that. We have correspondence from maybe 6, 7 people on that road saying that they do not give their permission for its use. So I just think that has to be clarified, and then we have to, if they're saying it can't be used and that's the case, then we have to revise to eliminate it as an access point.
Mr. Chairman, can I speak to this point? This point's been raised a number of times by this particular board member, and it appears to, in my opinion, to be an attempt for a gotcha moment. There's nothing that we're proposing to do with respect to Hedges Lane that affects any of the part of Hedges Lane that's owned by anyone other than the applicant. So it is a private road, but every part of the road that would be implicated in providing an access point on the northeast corner is totally owned 100% by the applicant or an affiliate of the applicant, and not by any other third party. So this concern is not real, and I just don't think that we have to continually answer and hold up this process for hypothetical situations that don't exist.
Let me ask you this: would we be able to, in any further revised EIS, be able to, put in, as we might say, drop a footnote or something on that?
If I might just interject, actually, Hedges Lane is discussed in the revised traffic study, August 30th of 21. In fact, there's a sketch, a figure in the report that shows that the applicant is offering to cul-de-sac Hedges Lane.
On his own property, So
there would...
If they don't want that, that's fine. We won't do it. We'll do something else. But, it's not dictated by ownership interest by anyone else as a matter of law.
Okay, so there's no, that would constructing a cul-de-sac at the north end of Hedges Lane would essentially preclude it from providing access to this development.
No, yes, it would. And if we thought that was the most beneficial thing for the neighbors, because if you want a private road, the most private road you can get is have a cul-de-sac on it. Because today, there's no inhibition today for someone like myself who's driving down Danielsville Road that decides to drive through Hedges Lane. Okay, there's no prohibition today. This would provide that. This is an enhancement for these people. If they're not interested in that, we will do. We won't implicate it. So but at the end of the day, the access point that we've put into the traffic study and has been analyzed by our experts and looked at by yours is 100% on our client's property. And so there's no prohibition, and it won't affect anything else that's there today in any meaningful way. So this is a tempest in a teapot that keeps being brought up as if it's something.
David, I object. I object to you characterizing this as some kind of red herring.
I think it is a red herring. because
We have correspondence, David, from all of the owners on that road. You saying we should just ignore that? We
No,
should just-
I'm explaining to you why, as a matter of law, it's irrelevant. That concern is not based in anything. It's not based in reality. We're not inviting people down Hedges Lane to get into the proposed development. That's not what's being proposed here.
But
Let me ask-
An
let me
exit
ask-
and entrance in the northwest corner.
Let me ask,
On my client's property.
sorry, Mr. Regan. Let me ask Ray, let me ask Mr. Russo. Is there anything about this particular issue that should hold up the resolution?
I don't see it. I think it's been addressed in the August 30th, 2021 revision to the traffic impact study.
It's not clear to me that you would need to do anything further in the DEIS. The comments, there are obviously going to be comments from the public on the revised EIS once it's submitted and the board declares it as complete. So there's ample opportunity. The completeness is just trying to get to the point where the document contains the information needed to look at the issues. If the public believes that there's something else that isn't adequately addressed and they raise it as a comment, it'll have to be addressed in the final EIS. You considered further. We're not ignoring things, Randy, at all. It's just a question. If, for example, if the comments that came in didn't see the amended DEIS with a cul-de-sac in it, that it's understandable why they might be still concerned, or at least expressing those kind of concerns. But at this stage, I'm not sure what you would do. You might say something further about it or amplify that, but I think the document is sufficient to address or allow public comment on that issue.
Okay, thank you, Dan. My understanding is that Hedges Lane runs from Daniels Hole Road. You can come in off Daniels Hole Road and drive all the way down to the old Montauk Highway. And so what the applicant is saying is that northern section of the road, which connects with Daniels Hole Road, is actually not part of Hedges Lane. That's privately owned by the applicant. That's what I'm hearing. I just want to. This is why I've asked for clarification of this in the revisions.
What I'm saying is that the road is owned to the center line by each of the adjoining properties. The northern end of the road is owned on both sides by the applicant. So they own both sides. We're not denying anyone any access to anything, or nor are we encouraging anyone to use it.
Yeah, I don't think that's clear, but see what the other board members think.
Yeah. Do any other board members have anything else that they want to address?
I just want to say,
Please,
so our concern with the neighborhood, how it's going to affect the neighborhood roads, I'm assuming that is part of this resolution. It's not very clear the way it was written in the resolution that's being included in the traffic study.
Well, that was Sharon, that was my question, was, are we going to be talking about specific roads to the west of Northwest Road?
So
is that where you're going with that?
Yeah, the same thing, just the way it's written in the resolution, it's not clear to me whether that's being addressed.
Eric?
Ray, over to you, or Eric, yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Could you say that again? I'm sorry.
The question is whether the EIS, whether Schedule A to the resolution is going to mention or does mention the specific road network by name, I guess, Sharon, of the roads to the immediate west of Northwest Road. Sharon, was that it?
How the neighborhood's going to be affected by the additional traffic. Yeah.
I mean, the traffic study gives traffic counts, but I mean, that's kind of a broad question, you know? It
I
speaks
think
to the volume coming out, but Yeah.
I think it had to do with those residential, there are a couple of blocks, Eastgate, all those blocks that are northwest of Montauk Highway and
The connecting roads in particular.
yes, because there's already a sort of way through there that people know that, truck traffic could also use. And the southern, just all those residential, I think that particular area is heavily residentially populated. And then to the south also, there are residential streets that would be affected. I think that was what we had discussed last time. And I think that's, Sharon, that's what right?
That's what I had in mind. And I think that it's necessary to name the streets.
Why not? What about Hedges Lane in that?
Randy, Hedges Lane is compared, with all due respect, and I have friends who live on Hedges Lane. The impact that I think is going to be much more significant is going to be on those roads like Ardsley, Bathgate, and I forget.
Eastgate,
all the way down to Eastgate, Westgate. Westgate is a north-south road, and then you have to go across Crossway to get to Eastgate, and then you have to continue down, and eventually you get Eastgate, Westgate, and Town Line, and I'm blanking on another one.
I can show you the aerial if you want, but I'm looking at it right now. So.
Well, I think what's important is that there be a reference in that Schedule A, I think it's the third to last paragraph, that talks about the traffic, that there needs to be a discussion of the impacts on those local roadways, on those, because, that to me, you've got the groundwater issue, and you got the traffic issue, and you got the layout issue. Those are the three major issues in the application, and the implications on the neighbors immediately to the west of the site, on the other side of Northwest Road, is significant. And I think that we need to have the EIS address those particular roads by name, particularly. And I hope I'm not overstating it. And if the rest of the board doesn't agree with me, please say so. But there are dozens of houses there. That Northwest Road access is going to ultimately be, in my view, the main access in and out of the site. It's not the main, well, certainly in my view, the main. And it impacts the corner of Northwest Road and 27, and the overflow into those residential neighborhoods cannot be denied. I don't think it can be denied. And I think that it's an essential thing that any traffic study going forward address those particular roads. They're all straight, local, two-lane, well, more or less two-lane residential roads. So if any of the board members disagree with me on this, or if they think that it's, overstating the issue, please say so. I don't want it to be like, this is what I want, this is what I want. I want the full board's, if you don't agree, please say so. If you agree, great. If you think it's benign, go ahead.
No, I agree. I think that there are residential. There are clusters of residential homes to the south too. Across. I can't think of the name of the road that on the post office. The corner of the post office there.
Stairs Path.
Stairs Path. And then there are roads off that too. That. I think we've all experienced here the frustration of getting from point A to point B when there's a lot of traffic on the highway, and any number of us, I'm sure, have used those residential streets to get around traffic.
Yep.
And I think the concern is with the desire to include these as part of the assessment is what impacts trucks on those roads might have if they're using them as a shortcut as well.
Yeah. I just want to say
Eric, can
that
I ask? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Who's going?
Dan, then Ed.
Okay. Okay. Eric, were you able to capture the names of the streets? Because all you got to do is add a sentence to that third from the end paragraph.
I have a working sentence here. The traffic study should consider the traffic impacts on the residential roads to the west and southwest, including, but not limited to, I don't know if we want to add the but not limited to, Cow Hill Lane, Eastgate Road. I'm looking at the aerial right now and I'm considering, not cul-de-sacs, like, Sandown Court is a cul-de-sac.
No, not Sandown, no.
Yeah, no, I'm
further south.
Yeah, across Montauk Highway or?
No, further south.
Yeah. Well, I'm saying Cow Hill, because Cow Hill cuts over.
Cow Hill is the cut across.
Yeah, to Eastgate Road.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's other ones that you want me to mention.
Well, when you get to the other side of Eastgate, then you go across Causeway, and you get to Westgate, and then you get Ardsley, and I think that's Bathgate over there, and one or two others. My concern is, look, everybody does it. You get to the corner, you look to your left, you see a backup of cars, you say, well, it's quicker to make a right and go up the Causeway, cut across Causeway, and go down Westgate. So,
let me share screen because it's a very visual thing, and I have it up right now.
Mm-hmm.
So hopefully you can see that.
Not yet. There we go. All right. You're going to have to tighten in on that to get the names, but.
Yeah.
Well, I'll start.
Yeah, there's Cow Hill. Your cursor's on Cow Hill.
Yeah. So here's Bathgate is down at the bottom here, which runs behind, the gas station and all the stores. And then Wainscott Northwest, which would be one of the main exits and entrances to the subdivision. My cursor is on. This is Cow Hill. So if you came down Cow Hill to the west here, which is I think what you're talking about, is getting around the traffic and the traffic light. You'd come down Cow Hill to Eastgate. You could either go south on Eastgate, which would bring you to Montauk Highway, or you could go up north to the Crossway. Here over to the west, and then down Westgate Road.
Or you could jump off on any of those three that you just drove. Not quite drove past.
Those aren't through streets. There's only one. I lived on that street for almost 17 years, and you're going down, Sam. You're going down streets that don't go through. There's only one.
Goes through, David?
Clyde.
Okay.
Clyde.
Ardsley doesn't?
Ardsley does, but you're on the road by then. You're one lot away from the highway at that point.
All right, but you understand what my concern is shortcutting. I don't think it's unreasonable to ask for the impact on those. I mean, for what it's worth.
I don't disagree, but I think what's unreasonable at some point we're going to be in another township, and Yeah,
I know. I and as much as we all love Southampton town, I don't think we need to. I don't think we need to go beyond Town Line Road. That's.
Thank you.
I'm with you. I'm with you on that. So, all right, if that's all right with you, can we?
And just can I make one comment about going south? And I'm not trying to discourage the board. You're right to ask for what's reasonable, but going on those south roads, when you're coming onto the highway, you wouldn't be going east to go down south to go along Two-Rod Highway. That would make no sense if you wanted to go west. And if you came out at Northwest Road or anything west of that, you passed the light. So you wouldn't be going down, go through the light, go down northwest to go along Main Street. I mean, that doesn't make any sense.
My instinct agrees with that, David.
I live on Sayers Path now. I know these streets, every inch of them. You wouldn't do that. No matter how frustrated you are, you wouldn't do that.
You know what my concern is
I know your concern. It's reasonable, and we'll be glad to address it.
Okay, great.
So, could Eric show Hedges Lane on his map, on his aerial?
I can.
Could you? I'd just like the board to see if we're going to name names. I don't understand why Hedges Lane is a name.
Because you just told us, and there's a private road, so no one's going to use it.
I said I don't know, David.
It is a private road. It's mapped on a private road. It's on every map as a private road. The only reason it's paved is when my client paved it himself out of his own pocket when he lived there 15, 20 years ago. It's
Well, I
still
don't
a private road.
I don't understand the resistance to looking at a road with residences fronting on the pit where we have significant correspondence from them, concern
They
about
just told us that they won't give permission, so it's not in play.
I don't know that. I don't know that.
The
Why?
question is whether the EIS there's an impact that's required to be addressed in the EIS.
Yeah, well, Sam, why is it any different than the roads you're naming?
Because the roads I'm naming
They're
are going to take people out of the project to the west. That road only takes people down to 27, which I'm not minimizing, but because it's closed off, because it's going to be a cul-de-sac, it's not going to put them on.
Wait. How do we know it's going to be a cul-de-sac?
Well, isn't that
That issue is not being decided at this point. Your counsel explained to you where we are in the process.
Well, I don't.
You're looking for resolutions. We're not. This is not a document that gives resolutions.
I say the solution is name Hedges Lane in your increased look, Sam. That's what I would propose, an amendment here. And
I don't necessarily see any. I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing. I just don't know what we gain from it.
Well, what does everybody else
like
think?
I said, I'm not going to say if the board wants another street name to look at. Fine.
Why don't we just vote on it? I think the issue's been laid out.
That's fine. That's how many people want to add Hedges Lane to the streets to be mentioned in the traffic study?
I do.
1, 2, Randy. 2, Kathy.
It wouldn't hurt. I'm sort of agnostic on it.
Sharon.
I don't think it's necessary. I don't think it's going to be really.
What's going on?
I'm sorry?
Rach? Yes. What's going on?
I'm sorry. Is there somebody?
Mr. Egan, you're not muted.
That's Andrew Strong.
I didn't know who I meant. So, No,
I thought it was you, Mr. Egan. I'm sorry.
Ed?
I'm agnostic on it too. It wouldn't hurt.
Ian?
No, I defer to our traffic engineer who says it's not necessary, and I'll go with that.
Me too. What do you think? What is that? Where did that leave us? I think that left us with.
And to be clear, I only say that because I don't think we're ignoring the issue, and I'm listening to the experts on that. So if we have what we need in there to do a thorough analysis, and our traffic engineer says we do, I think we're good.
Keep in mind, and Mr. Russo was explaining this. This is just to get a complete draft environmental impact statement. Yeah. There will then be a public portion. You'll have to respond to comments that you receive. I would certainly anticipate that many of the neighbors on all of the neighboring streets are going to have comments on and concerns that you are going to want the final environmental impact statement to address. So it's not like, you need to have everything that you're ever going to consider at this stage in the review process.
As I see it, at least 4 people didn't want to add it as a specifically named street. So
can I just, for the purposes of getting through
the if you would.
Yeah. So the paragraph I would add here is the traffic study should consider the traffic impacts on the residential roads to the west and southwest, including but not limited to Cow Hill Lane, Eastgate Road, the Crossway, Westgate Road, Clyden Road, and Ardsley Road.
And what about, do we need town line on there? Mr. Egan, is that town line something that makes sense also?
If Clyden is on it, town line has to be.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. That's what, otherwise it's kind of pointless. So, all right, they add town line, and then, in my opinion, that's good. All right, let's go over to water, groundwater, which would be.
Yeah, Ben Cansemi, I believe, can speak to it. And Ben, I do have a copy of the applicant submitted work plan along with that sketch that illustrates their proposed additional testing locations, if you want me to put that up at any point.
Okay. Yeah, I probably won't need that. I mean, I'm going to basically go through the items in Schedule A that pertain to environmental and groundwater. We still have the issue of the 2-foot versus 4-foot separation for sanitary systems. I think this would be, easier to do an analysis on if we kind of understood the grading at the site. We don't have a grading plan. I think, once that information is available, we can further evaluate that, see, kind of where these systems sit and how much separation there will be. Then moving down some of the other issues here, we have had a lot of correspondence back and forth with the applicant's consultants. A lot of these issues have also been addressed in the revised DEIS. We got here is the section okay, we had requested some additional information on the soil types, percolation tests. The applicant did respond and provide some of that information. And it's included in their responses in the appendices. But one of the things we wanted to see was if we could bring in more of that information into the main body of the DEIS so that we don't have to kind of dig through the conclusions. This also kind of goes also for the sonar model, which was redone, to be site specific. It's briefly touched upon in the text and obviously further in the appendix, but ultimately, I think more detail of the sonar model needs to be included in the DEIS. It's in the appendix, but I think it needs to be brought out more so that it doesn't have to be dug through. I think that would definitely help quite a bit.
Okay.
So we had the concerns regarding the additional soil testing. We've had some discussions with the applicant's consultant, and we came to an agreement on what additional testing is needed. They provided a plan, which is now attached to this resolution, the draft resolution. I guess, Eric, if you can bring that up, we can kind of go through it.
Okay, doing it now. Hold on, my computer's not cooperating. But.
Is it necessary for us to go through all of the details if we've all read it and are, both parties are signed off on it? Shouldn't we just talk about changes we think?
Yeah, I kind of agree with that, Ian.
Okay.
If anybody suggests a change or has a question, we should ask
If
it.
there are any open issues, that's really what we're about.
Okay.
So.
Okay, so hold off.
I certainly don't want to interrupt Dan if he has something he wants to tell us. It seems like we're asking him to go through it. I'm not sure if that's necessary.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that. We've got a lot of items on the agenda anyway, and the planning department has been working very closely with the applicant to narrow the issues. But nonetheless, we have an application. We have a document that it's dynamic, and that changes are being made right up to the literally moment we're voting on it. So if there are things that we need to address because there are ongoing changes, let's get to those specifically.
Okay. Yeah, that's really all I had, for the changes, regarding the changes. So I think, if board members are all, comfortable with the work plan and don't have any questions on it, we can move on.
Let me ask the board, does anybody have any questions for Ben?
Ben, are you looking at the coordination with the water authority? Is that part of your purview?
No, we are not involved with the coordination with the water authority. We've requested that information in the past just for them to confirm that the capacity's there. We know the infrastructure is there in the area, based on current work that's going on and our experiences in the area. But, certainly, confirmation from the water authority that the capacity is there for this project is important.
And we don't have that.
No, we don't have that information to my knowledge.
And what about the impact? I don't remember the exact number of gallons that we're assuming are going to be discharged at this site every day. But what about the impact of importing all of that water from an off-site supply well and discharging it on this site? Have you looked at that?
I've looked at it generally, and I mean, given, the anticipated amount of flows that are anticipated for this project, I believe there were around 16,000 or so gallons per day. Over, a 50-acre site, this isn't going to have a very significant effect on the site. I don't expect, it's going to cause any kind of significant mounding or anything like that. So, this additional input shouldn't have any problems with the site.
Kathy, did you have something?
I figured it. I read through the work plan and I just wanted to make sure I see where the soil samples are proposed on the map here. And I thought we were asking for more, but I guess this is something that you've worked out with them, right, Ben?
Yeah. I mean, basically, we're really targeting the the fire training area,
right,
which is located up in the northern portions of the site.
Yeah.
And, we're basing that on, the data that was there. There were some areas we thought we could have used some additional information on, and they've proposed, additional borings in that area and, around it. And, we've also looked at, the other data that's been on the site, and, the other information seems to be sufficient. So really, we were just targeting this fire training area, and with this work plan, that should, get us the initial information we're looking for.
Okay. All right. Okay.
All right, anybody else? Okay, in that case, I'm going to, actually, Mr. Egan, do you have anything else you want to add? Any final points? No? Shaking your head?
He's muted.
You're muted, David.
He's blocked.
Classic.
Sam, I do have a question whenever there's a chance.
Yes, that's the place we're at.
Yeah, I don't want to interrupt if Mr. Egan is going to say something. I just want to make sure that the applicant had objected specifically to the study of other commercial properties that aren't CI, the study. And I think that Eric clarified that for them at the last meeting. I just want to confirm that everybody's in agreement.
Yes.
That's still in.
I had a discussion with Chick Voorhees about that, and we agreed. And actually, you'll see in the Schedule A of the newest document that I sent you this morning, the second paragraph clarifies that the applicants are going to include
I saw it.
Those other zoning
I
districts.
saw it in there. I just wanted to make sure we were on the same page, since that was a point of.
Yes, in fact, we made some changes to that language and suggested those based on those discussions, and everyone agrees on what has to be done.
Great.
All right, very good. Thank you, Ian, for that. Glad you mentioned that. Does anyone else, before we go, because I'm going to ask Mr. Egan if he has anything, and then after that, I'm going to go to a vote.
Well, Sam, I think that we should add in the alternative section, and you correct me if we're going to get to this later, but I think we need a 25% open space plan, and we need a layout of the railroad lot, and we need a layout of the sports field, preliminary in the alternative. And if we don't do that now, when are we going to do it?
I think we're getting ahead of ourselves on both of those things. Remember where we are. This is a subdivision. We're voting on a subdivision of a property. That's what it is, not the particular uses. There'll be down the road, so to speak, plenty of time to talk about the railroad and any other particularized uses of any of the particular lots. But right now, the question before us is the subdivision of the property. So,
well, I would just add that we don't have any confirmation from the town board that there's going to be any acquisition on this property. So I think the planning board has to approach it as if there will not be any acquisition here.
We are charged with deciding whether or not a subdivision map is whether the EIS that's being submitted in connection with the proposed subdivision is satisfactory. Well, actually, the word is complete. That's what's before us right now today on December 1st at 7:26 p.m.
Well,
there are many other issues that are going to come down the road on this.
I'd love to hear from Dan on this, that we're going to have the opportunity to explore alternatives on this at some point. And if
just so you know, Randy, after we take, as the planning board has set, planning department has set up our agenda for tonight. Well, suggested our agenda for tonight, I should say. The consensus questions first is on the deeming the DEIS incomplete or not, and then a question of what changes should be made to the general subdivision layout. So it's not like we're going to walk away from that issue tonight after we take this vote.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
Well, it's in the agenda that's online. So do you still need to hear from Dan?
No, if we're going to discuss the layout, and
that's the next item.
And we have the opportunity to thoroughly explore alternatives. Because
Wait, excuse me. I'm confused. We were told specifically that there would be no substantive discussion tonight other than this resolution. I waived off our experts on that basis. So what you just said seems totally inconsistent with that.
Well, this is. I'm only looking at the agenda, not the agenda.
Keep in mind that was a memorandum from 4 meetings ago. So right. So we've worked through a lot of that, and narrowed down the items here that are still incomplete. So
I was going to say, I will confess that there's been a pretty strong consensus on the board that 50 lots is more than we want to see. And
that judgment comes later when you have a complete document and you've gone through the process. You know what I mean? Right now, you're just trying to get a complete document in the eyes of the adopted scope. So the decision comes later, and and the consideration of the alternatives comes later when you have a complete document.
I'm just as happy not to talk about that but I saw it here on the platter that you prepared. So, because we did have 40, there in my mind, and I don't think anybody disagrees with me, the whole board said that the number of lots as proposed is too much. But we don't need to go through that again. But the opportunity was there to do that. But if there's an understanding that wasn't going to happen, and if I read this thing incorrectly, I'm going to correct myself right now, or not incorrectly, but that this shouldn't be there. That said, Randy, did you still want to hear from Dan?
No, but
okay.
I don't completely understand why the applicant wants to go through a process of pushing through this DEIS on a project that none of us are going to vote for.
Well, that's
a very interesting comment to put on the record at this stage of the game.
No, none of us agree.
We will make our decisions, Mr. Parsons. We're doing what we think is correct under law, under this process.
Okay.
I don't think
the fact that you want to spread those kind of comments on the record. You go ahead.
We have plenty of information, David. We have plenty of information.
Let me stop everybody right now, okay? Randy, you said what you said. I don't know that you're accurately portraying that you even can accurately portray how everyone's going to vote down the road.
I don't know how everyone's going to vote.
But it sounded that. All I said was that in a previous meeting, 3 meetings ago, there was broad consensus that 50 units was too much. All right, 50 lots, I should say, was too much. All right, that's all I said. Where it goes after the EIS is either deemed complete or not is a whole other story. The only issue right now before us today is going to be voting on whether or not the EIS is complete or incomplete. With that, Sharon, it's on you to make a motion. So,
To adopt the resolution?
precisely.
Yeah, and I would say, I have read the resolution with the changes made, at the meeting.
Thank you.
Yeah. So,
Make the resolution that way.
yeah, I have read the resolution with the additional changes we've made this evening, including the additional work on the traffic impacts of the neighborhood. And I move to adopt this resolution.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor of adopting the resolution, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Resolution is adopted 7-0. Okay? Again,
Thank you.
thank you. I want to thank the applicants for their active participation in this process. This has been, in my experience, the biggest, ad nauseum, the biggest single application this town has before it, and we've given it a lot of attention, and I say, frankly, it needs and deserves that attention. And again, thank you to the applicant's counsel, and my special thanks to our consultants and experts who spent countless hours, although I know you keep count, countless hours of time preparing for this and guiding the board so ably through this process. I want to thank also the board for a tremendous effort in reading and reviewing and understanding this enormous amount of work. I want to thank Sharon. Thank you very much for shepherding us and guiding us as the point person on this, an entirely unenviable task you've been assigned. And now we will leave it to the planning department and the applicant to come up with, I guess it'll be a second revised or something, whatever title you give it, EIS. So with that, thank you all very much. Am I missing anything? Where's council?
No, I don't believe so. Let me just ask a question, David. Do you have any sense of relative timing of when the revised EIS will be back before the board?
Yeah, I mean, our goal is to do it as quickly as possible. We're at work now, and we see it being a early part of the new year.
Okay, no, that's helpful because one of the challenges in these documents, the goal, of course, is to get it complete so the public can see it and start the full comment process, and that's everybody's goal, so that it moves forward. And just anticipating, having a sense of when it's coming is helpful because then people can prepare to get on it quickly.
Yeah, and what I can do is I will let you know as we get closer because we don't want to just spring it on you. I mean,
yeah,
we think it's going to be arriving in 2 weeks. I will reach out and let you know.
Oh, that's terrific. Thank you.
The heads up is appreciated. Thank you.
I get it because the 30-day clock, and we don't want to put you under pressure. We just want to get this done correctly.
Okay.
Right. Thank you, David.
All right, and again, happy Merry Christmas and Happy New Year and Happy Hanukkah to everybody who was involved. And now we can, all the consultants and the applicant can click off, and we'll all have bigger pictures to look at each other on Zoom. So, thanks very much. Okay. Let's now move on to the first item on the next item, I should say, on our work session, which is the marvelous lot line modification. That one is Will and Ian, and who's the applicant on that? Is that Ms. Burke or Ms. McCaffrey? Thank you very much. Well, okay. All right, go ahead, Will.
Thanks. Okay, this was an application that was previously made and reviewed to reconfigure the lot line of two parcels by transferring 2,494 square feet of lot area from lot 1 to the neighboring lot 2. This was reviewed at a previous planning board meeting, and On the previous evaluation, it was noted, as outlined in Chapter 220 of the Town Code, that topographic features such as steep slopes need to be protected, and that the board another section of Chapter 220 requires the board to protect areas of steep slopes from development. At the previous meeting, the planning department recommended the board require a scenic easement or similar mitigation to prevent disturbances of those steep slopes areas. The board agreed to require the scenic easement. In the revised version of the application, the property owner stated they still did not agree to place an easement or covenant over the required areas of the property, citing a different section of Chapter 220 of the Town Code's regulations regarding adjustment of property lines. The planning board decided to leave it to the council, to the board, to give its analysis regarding the section of the Town Code cited by the applicant. In the attached memo submitted by the council to the board, he stated that even if the applicant has met the requirements of Chapter 220-2.18, it is still not an exhaustive list of requirements, and that they must also meet the design requirements for a sub-waiver, which includes meeting the requirements outlined in the Town Code to protect steep slopes from development. In the letter addressed to the planning board dated September 28th, the applicant remained firm in their stance to not be willing to offer the town a scenic easement over portions of the properties, citing that the proposed action is extremely minor in nature, as well as that the granting of the minor transfer of lot area would not create an environmental effect, nor make future planning of the parcels more difficult or impossible, nor would it pose an immediate or potential problem. The applicant states that they are requesting the transfer to simply make both lots a bit more uniform in shape, and that a scenic easement would devalue the property and effectively cut off the access between them that the family wishes to maintain for future planning purposes. Having read both the council's clear assessment of the requirements of the code as well as the applicant's response to said assessment, the planning department leaves it up to the planning board to decide whether to approve the application without requiring a scenic easement, noting that the proposed lot line modification is indeed minor and that it would not cause any significant environmental effects, nor make future the planning of the parcels impossible. Should they decide to approve the application, they also have the option to waive the public hearing.
Okay, very good. There's Ms. McCaffrey. Would you like to add anything?
Yeah, so we've spoken with our client, and their position is still that they're not willing to offer a scenic easement over the 20% sloped areas. The proposed transfer area is only 2,494 square feet of lot area. And of that area, 1,055 square feet is sloped. And once you exclude the area that's protected by setbacks, it's really only approximately 523 square feet of sloped area that would be considered buildable. So, and it should also be noted that the lot area is being transferred to the lot that's already developed fully, and is at its max clearing limit, so it wouldn't be able to be cleared. The applicant does not want the burden of a landlocked scenic easement on their property, and their goal is simply to make the two lots more uniform in shape. And we agree with Will that the request is minor and will not cause any significant environmental effect or make future planning impossible. And we would like for the board to deem the application complete and either waive or move to a public hearing this evening.
Very good. Looking for my little cheat sheet here. This is Randy. I'm sorry, sorry, Ian. This is yours.
Yeah, thank you, Sam. Honestly, I'm a little surprised that this is the sticking point that it is. We've always treated lot line modifications as subdivisions in the broad sense, and one of our clear charges is to make sure that we protect steep slopes. So, I think we have to do that, and I'm curious to hear what other people think. As far as the mechanism, if it's the scenic easement that's the problem, I think we could achieve that with building envelopes. Perhaps the applicant has something to offer, but the position of just no, we don't want to do anything here leads me to believe there's some that could be developed in the future. And I think that's something we have to prevent. And this is the stage at which we can do it. I don't think this is a huge deal. This lot line modification, I'm supportive of it generally. But the time we have to protect steep slopes is the time when it's before us. And to me, that's I could be wrong, but that's a clear charge and we have a clear directive on that to do so. totally open to the least invasive or the most friendly means of doing that for the applicant, but we have to do something, in my opinion.
Okay. Does any other board members want to chime in on this one?
What does it mean when they say that planning, it doesn't make planning impossible in the future? Does that mean that they can't just go ahead and develop that area of steep slopes that we're requiring the scenic easement on without coming in front of the board at a later date? Or, I mean, what exactly does that mean?
It just means we wouldn't do a lot line modification if it left one lot undevelopable, which is definitely not the case here. You know, they're right that that's not, this won't make planning impossible. My argument, and I think the planning department's original argument, was we need to protect those slopes. Whether it could be planned without doing that or not, I think that's too narrow of a view.
So what could they do, Ian, if we don't insist on the scenic easement?
They could get a building permit to build on steep slopes. And correct me if I'm wrong, but you know, if we don't do something to not allow that, they could apply for a building permit. We don't do that.
You know, I don't want to. Go ahead, Kathy.
Well, we don't do that for a reason. You know, the steep slopes are, environmental features that are meant to be protected. Now, in this instance, it is a small piece. It's understandable. I too support Ian's position 100%. And I think that this is a specific line item that we're meant to be checking when we're looking at these kinds of subdivisions and modifications to a subdivision. I don't see any way around it unless the applicant can suggest some other mechanism. I'm not unsympathetic to the applicant's position on this, but I think to absolutely flatly refuse to do that. It seems like a very narrow view about something that's an environmental issue. You know, the steep slopes shouldn't be disturbed. They shouldn't be built upon. It's part of the code. It's one of the primary rules. You can't, we can't break our primary rules, even if it's just for a little thing. It doesn't work. I would recommend the applicant take another pass at this and see if there's some other way that they can protect those slopes for us if the scenic easement feels too burdensome. But I think we need to know they will not be built upon in some other, fashion. I would leave that up to the attorneys and the applicant to propose, but
I'd like to ask the applicant, I think you mentioned somewhere in your letter, perhaps, that insisting on this scenic easement would reduce the value of the property. Why would it do that if your intention is not to build on that steep slope?
It's just more for future planning purposes. They really just don't want the scenic easement, the burden of it.
What kind of future planning purposes? What do you mean by that?
I mean, they want to keep this property in their hands this whole time, forever.
But if they're not going to build on it, what's the difference, whether it's a scenic easement or not? I mean, the only reason that correct me if I'm wrong, the only reason that I would think you would want not to have that scenic easement is because you want to leave the option open for the future to possibly build on it. And what we're saying is that we're totally against that.
Build on it, or maybe a driveway or a path, because they own both lots.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I think all they would really want is the path. They would want, if anything, future planning to have the access between the two lots since they own both properties. And so it's just the scenic easement in their eyes is a burden to have.
To be clear, I am open to leaving a path of some sort, but I think that's a different conversation than no scenic easement, nothing at all. And I think that Lou's point is a good one. I mean, and the applicant's point, we have to treat, our decision will last in perpetuity. So if you're trying to leave the options open in the future, that's precisely our concern. And now is the time to address it.
Can I just make a comment to the board, just to remind the board and the applicant that the instrument of a scenic easement can be, negotiated to a certain extent, what's allowed and what's not allowed within the property burdened by the easement. So for example, it's, of course you can work off of a standard form easement, but you can put in language to allow or not allow things like, a path through both properties. Of course, that can be a discussion between the applicant and the board to, if their concern truly is that the, placing the easement in the area between the two parcels would effectively cut off the access. That's not necessarily, standard and absolute scenic easement language.
That can be written into the easement?
Or, yeah. I mean, I've seen it. We've seen easements where, they can be particularized to a property. There can be scenic easements, but if it's on an ag property where normally, you would or you wouldn't allow fencing, for example, you can write in, however, agricultural fencing is allowed. So in this case, you can contemplate anything because so long as the properties are, in common ownership or not, that if both properties want to, use that as access, that you can have that. It doesn't have to be, sterilized for every potential future use.
I don't think we want grading or fill or, cut and fill, but certainly a path over the existing topography. I don't see a problem with that.
Would the board be open to defining a building envelope within the transfer area, excluding the 20% sloped areas?
Well, I will say, I mean, that's almost the entire area. In fact, I have, let me show you, I have a diagram and an aerial here, along with the topography at 1 foot intervals. And hopefully you can see that, obviously the topography is in yellow there. And, I drew that little triangle that's proposed to be transferred. So, I mean, really what you're talking about there, again, this is a very small area. We concede that, and it's really, you're just looking at a slope down into the lower ground there, and a depression off the back of, the lot that you'd see in the bottom of the screen there. You can even see this rock wall here, which is kind of the edge of where the property was graded, and then it drops off to the back there. So, I mean, to Jameson's point, if you didn't, and, most of that area is already deemed cleared under the town code. The understory was long since removed. It is vegetated. But, an easement that prohibited the any structures or any regrading of that area, but did allow for clearing or something like that, I think is completely reasonable. The planning department, again, it's a small area, but, as Kathy said, and as Ian said, we're being consistent with the fact that Chapter 220, that governs lot line modifications among other subdivisions, demands that and directs the planning department to protect any areas of greater than 20% slopes. And that's what the majority of this area is. So hopefully that's a clarification a little bit.
I think that it's appropriate at this point for us to move on to the questions, unless any board member has anything else they want to add. Okay. The first one is, should the planning board uphold the requirement of the scenic easement from the previous planning board meeting concerning this property, taking into account the analysis provided by council and the applicant's response?
Yes.
Is there anyone who says no on that? No? Okay. Should the planning board elect not proceed with the requirement, the scenic easement in this application is ready for approval? Oh, I'm sorry. I read it backwards. Should the planning board elect not to proceed with the requirement, there's a word of missing, of the scenic easement, is this application ready for approval?
No.
Not applicable.
Because we are looking to proceed.
We voted yes on the first one, right?
Yes.
That's
Well, I think it's important, though, to modify the question a little bit, Sam, because we are saying, we can modify the scenic easement, right, in such a way to be acceptable to the homeowner.
So then it's not ready for approval.
No, it's not.
Or even some other mechanism that we aren't thinking,
or some other mechanism.
Well, can I be clear, or ask the question to be clear for the applicant? What does the planning board not want to see in that area? Our recommendation. Well, I'm saying, so talking about the wording in the easement, and I know we got a lot of applications on here tonight, so I'll try to be right to the point. But we would recommend that there be a scenic easement, or, that would be the ideal mechanism, that it prohibit the erection of structures in those areas, and that it prohibit regrading of those areas. I don't think that adding a pathway or clearing in those areas is necessarily something that's,
Eric,
yeah.
Let me just interrupt you a second. I think clearing, when you're talking about slopes, you want the vegetation there to prevent erosion. So
it's already mostly cleared. You know what I mean?
It's in lawn.
I get your point. Yeah. But it is already mostly cleared.
But there's something growing there, right?
That's correct.
Well, I think that's what Randy is saying.
No, I see exactly what he's saying.
Yeah. And it's, to my mind, if they want to put like pavers on top of it or something, but anything that would excavate the land, if they want to access from property to property, if they could, put something on top of it, but excavating it to me is not an acceptable alternative.
Yeah, I mean, if the rest of the board agrees, then you would do basically a standard easement with a provision that there could be a let's say 4-foot wide pathway. We have plenty of easements like that.
Yep.
Okay.
I don't know if that's amenable to the applicants, though.
Well, wouldn't it be a good idea for them to go back and talk to their clients and then we'll put this on for another night instead of trying to work out the details here?
I thank you, Kathy. I quite agree. I think, the applicant must have a clear understanding now that this board unanimously, I think, is placing a priority on protecting the steep slopes on this parcel. And whatever the next steps are that are taken, unless they want to, have something that falls down next time, it has to take that into account. So with that, we'd like to move on to the next application if we could.
Eric, one quick thing is if the owner is currently mowing that area and likes to keep it open like that, I don't think we would have
Let's let the applicant work with the planning department, and they're going to go. The planning department will go back.
I'm just putting that out there that I'm not sure mowing as a mowed area might be fine.
All right, we're going to move on to the next applicant, which is Wainscott Sewing Society. Oh, I'm sorry, Ms. McCaffrey. Thank you very much. Appreciate you being here, and again, try working with the planning department and. You know the direction we're looking to go.
Yes, I'll discuss with the applicant. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. I see Barbara and Dennis. There you are. Good evening. How are you? They're here for the Wainscott Sewing Society. And Randy, this one is yours. And Will, I think, yeah, you got it. So go ahead, Will.
I'm going to share the screen here. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So this was an application. This was an application that was discussed recently to abandon the existing sanitary system and install a low nitrogen IA septic system, add a bathroom, provide handicap access pursuant to the ADA, and provide 2 parking spaces on site at the Wainscott Chapel, overseen, preserved, and maintained by the Wainscott Sewing Society. The application was reviewed at the meeting held on November 3rd. It was determined that the board found the proposed installation of a new low nitrogen sanitary system, as you can kind of see here, and the removal of the existing outhouse and installation of a new restroom on site to be acceptable. Additionally, it was agreed that the applicant should install an ADA-approved parking area with the driveway to be unimproved. The only remaining requirement by the planning board was that the applicant submit the septic system plan prepared by Drew Bennett, as mentioned on the submitted site plan. They did submit this septic system plan. So given that the septic system plan was, as mentioned in the site plan, was the only requirement remaining by the board at the previous planning board meeting, the planning department finds the application to install the new septic system, add bathroom, provide handicap access pursuant to the ADA, and provide 2 parking spaces on site at the Wainscott Chapel to now be complete and ready to be scheduled for a public hearing.
Very good. Does the applicant wish to be heard with respect to this matter?
No, I don't think so, unless you have a question from us.
Okay, well, the only issue really is going to be whether there's a public hearing on this. Other than, of course, is the application ready for approval? Complete. I'm sorry, is the application complete? Randy, who's the point person on this application, go ahead.
Yeah, I think it's complete and probably should have a public hearing just because the people love Wainscott and they probably want to know what's going on.
Okay, anyone else have any comment on this? I would agree with you on that, Randy. I mean, I know that a lot of times applicants look at a public hearing as, something of a pain in the neck. I guess.
Just to clarify, actually, technically, you cannot waive the public hearing on this application.
Because it's a public facility?
I'm sorry?
Because it's a public facility?
No, because it requires approval of the health department and because the driveway puts them over 500 square feet.
Then okay, there we are. So then there will be a public hearing, which will mean that there'll be more public notice about this change, improvement, if you will, to the chapel. So I'll ask the board, is the application complete and ready to have a public hearing scheduled?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
Anyone say no? No. Okay. Eric, is there any chance that we didn't put the public hearing resolution on for tonight? Did we? No, we didn't. All right. Yeah. How quickly can we get the public hearing resolution on? Eric?
I assume for next week.
Okay. All right. So to the applicant, there'll be next week. There'll be a resolution on to schedule a public hearing. Assuming that resolution passes, there'll be a public hearing on the date set forth in that resolution. Anything else? Anything else from the applicant?
I'm not sure. You confused me. You said you were going a public hearing next week, but
No. There's going to be a resolution. The board's going to vote. In order to have a public hearing, we have to have a resolution that says we vote for a public hearing to take place on such and such date. So that resolution will be on next week.
It has to go in the newspaper.
Yeah, we can help them with the details.
Yeah. So it probably, Eric, do you have a guess when it might be?
Probably January 12th.
January 12th.
Okay,
probably be the hearing date.
We need to look at the Jody next year's calendar, and I haven't really had a chance to comment on it. But assuming we have a meeting on January 12th, that sounds about right for when we should be, when the public will have the opportunity to be heard on this application. Do you get that? Who's got Eric? Are you sharing the screen or is that Will?
No, that's Will right now.
Will, could you knock the map off the schematic off the thing so we have everybody? Thank you. So do you follow next week vote on the public hearing resolution? Assuming that passes, then there will be a public hearing, which we're guessing would be around January 12th.
okay, is there anything that we need to do to prepare for that?
We'll help you with that, ma'am, in the interim. We're here to explain everything that you need to do to post the property.
Yeah, you can work with Mr. Highland. Will Highland will help. Will, it's your application?
Yes.
Yeah, so work with Will about making sure, because there are very specific rules about who you have to give notice to, how you have to give notice, when you have to give notice. And if you don't do it right, then the night of the public hearing, when the chair asks the board's counsel, do we have jurisdiction? You want to hear yes. and the only way to make sure you're going to get a yes is to follow those rules regarding the noticing of the public hearing. Okay?
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, on to the next matter, which is Twinkle Farm. Again, Will, it's yours. Lou, you're also on this. And I believe that Mr. Egan was on this one?
Yes.
Okay, very good. Okay, in that case, Will, please go ahead with the review of the application.
Okay, I'm going to share screen again. Okay. This was an application that to create a storage equipment barn, a greenhouse, 71,500 square feet of cultivated space, an accessory driveway, and a walkway on a parcel located in East Hampton. At the previous review of the application by the planning board on July 8th, 2021, a series of additional comments were made that would be required in order for the application to move forward. The property contains prime agricultural soils, which you can the area of which is kind of, you can see here, kind of on the way it's scanned. The applicant submitted a revised survey and site plan that illustrated the depiction of the soils, the placement of the parking area, and the proposed agricultural barn were moved west by 10 feet, north by 15, placing it further away from those areas, but still mostly within them. At the previous planning board meeting, it was suggested they consider a relocation of the barn and or greenhouse further to the west, which could place it entirely outside the area of the prime agricultural soils while still meeting the rear yard setbacks. The planning board eventually reached an agreement with the applicant to relocate the barn to preserve prime agriculture areas and to preserve the 3 large existing beech trees. It was also required that the 3 existing beech trees be depicted on the site plan, and you can see those here. The applicant did not relocate the barn, but they did relocate the proposed gravel driveway and walkway, which was originally closer to where those 3 existing trees are, in order to accommodate the preservation of the existing trees. Given that the orientation of the barn, proposed driveway, and the existing trees would make it extremely difficult to move the barn any further out of the prime agricultural areas, the planning department sees this issue as mostly resolved, especially given that the existing trees would be preserved and that it would also be difficult to move the barn anywhere else further out of without compromising the setbacks. The applicant also submitted an additional sanitary system plan, sanitary calculations, and a cross-section of the system design. So all the prior concerns regarding that from the previous meeting have been addressed. At the previous planning board meeting, it was determined that specification sheets for the proposed exterior lights did not clearly indicate that the fixtures would be full cutoff. It was said that the applicant should provide additional lighting details that demonstrate that the fixtures will be fully cut off and comply with all the applicable regulations of the town code, as well as the planning board's guides for exterior lighting. The applicant did provide additional details that confirm that they would be fully cut off and would comply with the applicable regulations for the town code and the guidelines for exterior lighting. This included a fixture lumen maximum of 1,000 lumens and a bulb temperature of 2,700 Kelvin, which is lower than the recommended 3,000. At the time of the last review, the planning board requested that the applicant should submit revised floor plans for the proposed barn, which include the floor area and a notation stating that the barn will be designed to meet the planning board's groundwater protection policy. They have done this. So in conclusion, the applicant has complied with most of the requirements outlined at the previous planning board meeting regarding the existing beech trees, the sanitary system, lighting, and the floor plans. The planning board should discuss whether they want the barn to still be relocated further out of the area of prime agricultural soils. But given that they relocated the proposed gravel driveway and walkway in order to accommodate those existing trees, and that it would be difficult to relocate the barn in a way that would preserve the aforementioned existing trees and also meet setback requirements for the property, the planning department recommends that this application be considered complete.
Very good. Thank you very much for that very comprehensive report. Lou, this is yours. I'm sorry, my apologies. Mr. Egan, and would you like to be heard on this?
I'd just like to thank the planning department for a thorough review. We tried to achieve everything that was asked of us. We were underneath instruction that the paramount issue was with respect to the barn and the trees was to preserve the trees. We did that. I went to the site with the architect and the applicant after that meeting, and we discussed how to make this work to preserve the trees. Those trees are very large. They do have canopies that are rather substantial, and I think this is really the best balance that we can achieve, and we offer it in that vein. So, and we would appreciate it if the board would understand what we did and deem the application complete.
Thank you very much. Lou? Yeah?
I agree with the planning department's recommendation and the applicant's willingness to compromise the way they did. I think it's imperative that we save those trees. We are sacrificing some of the prime agricultural soil, but I think in return, getting the trees and not compromising this setback is a good balance. So I recommend that we move forward with this application.
Very well. Does anyone else have anything they want to add on this particular application? No? Hearing none? Is there a consensus that the application is complete?
Yes.
Yes.
Anyone say nay? In that case, the application is deemed complete. Thank you again to the applicant. Thank you, Will. And I guess we'll see you shortly.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening.
Thanks. Good night, Dave.
Good night. Okay, next we have, we're going to do Montauk times 4. The first one's going to be 92 South Euclid Avenue. These are all in Marco's bailiwick, and Sharon has 92 South Euclid. I see Mr. Strong on the.
I have something I need to say before.
We'll let you do that in a moment. I just want to make sure. Okay. Andrew, I see Ms. Burke is also on here. Is she going to be? There she is. Well, her name anyway. What's the division of labor on this? Just so that I know.
Andrew Strong is ours.
I'm sorry?
Andrew Strong is 92 Euclid.
He's 92, and then Ms. Burke has other of the 4 Montauks that we have on tonight. So, okay, let's go first with 92 South Euclid. Kathy?
Okay, I'd like to make the disclaimer that the applicant's representative is my son-in-law, and I feel I can be fair and impartial in judging this application.
Thanks very much. Okay, so Marco, go ahead.
Okay, so this is an application for basically a 2-story, 1,058 square foot commercial structure with the second floor affordable apartment and a basement in downtown Montauk. The site's currently vacant at the moment and vegetated and is zoned CB. The applicant has submitted revised plans that have amended the allowed and proposed coverage calculations. In addition, revised landscaping plan that denotes the dumpster enclosure. In conclusion, the application is complete and may schedule for public hearing.
Very good. Mr. Strong, do you have anything you want to add?
I have nothing to add to that. I'm looking forward to a public hearing. Yeah.
There you go. Okay. Sharon.
Yes, I think this is complete at this point.
Okay. Does anyone have any further comments on this? Hearing none, the application is complete and ready for public hearing.
Yes.
Anyone say no? Anyone? Last chance? Okay, the application is complete and ready for public hearing. 1 down, 3 to go. Beckman Commercial Building, again, Marco. Ian, this one is yours, and my apologies to Ms. Burke and Mr. Strong, who has this one.
That's fine.
That's yours, Tara? That's yours?
Yes.
Okay, thanks. I only have a few folks on my screen, myself included, and I don't know why I'm looking at myself. Okay, go ahead, Marco.
Okay. Sorry. So this was a site plan and special permit that was approved to construct a two-story, 2,066 square foot building with a first floor veterinarian office and a second floor to contain an an office use. The parcel's currently vacant and is situated in downtown Montauk as well. It's on the same side as 92 South Euclid, just discussed a moment ago, just further to the east. So the approval was granted in 2018 and was granted an extension of time in September 10th, 2021, with the condition that the applicant submit a revised plan regarding the placement and size of the proposed sidewalk. There have been no other previous extension of time requests for this application. But because of the recent activity and the significant effect on the site plan in regards to the sidewalk, it was important to have this kind of discussion, including parking as well. So the subject parcel is situated on a block in downtown Montauk, which has an active site plan application. Two active site plan applications exist across South Euclid Avenue, for lots across South Euclid Avenue, which was the Kazura site plan, and recently constructed, which was constructed 3 lots west of the subject parcel. Just a brief reminder, that one was constructed with 4-foot wide sidewalks within the town right away. The planning board has discussed the appropriate location for the sidewalk of 92 South Euclid, which is also located in the right of way, 2 lots to the west. The Beckman application was revised to have their sidewalks within the right of way and resized to match the existing 4-foot wide sidewalks. On the other side of South Euclid Avenue, the 2 easternmost lots have active site plans, Pete's Garden Center and Service Commercial site plan, which currently proposes a sidewalk in the right of way. South Essex Corner site plan proposes a sidewalk on the subject parcel. The majority of the sidewalks in downtown Montauk currently align properly and are situated within the right of ways. There are only a few areas where the sidewalks are situated on individual lots. These include areas adjacent to the playing fields in the northern end of downtown, the block east to the southeast of the plaza, and the block in question at this time. It is noted that most of the areas with sidewalks within the right-of-way do not have head-in parking on both sides of the road. This is limited to the plaza and the southern portion of South Edgemere Street, both of which are 100-foot right-of-ways, whereas South Euclid is 70 feet wide, as illustrated in the downtown Montauk study adopted by the town board. However, head-in parking within the right-of-way on a 70-foot wide road would not preclude maintaining the minimum required 12-foot wide lanes, so long as it is 10-foot by 18-foot space, maximum of 19 feet in depth. The downtown Montauk study provides diagrams illustrating examples of head-in parking configurations on streets such as these that are 70 feet wide. It's attached to the memo as well. And the applicant has submitted a revised site plan illustrating an approximated road center line that's roughly 30 feet from the parking spaces. The planning department recommends that the applicant submit a survey that is accurate measurement to the road center line from the proposed parking spaces, as 30.5 feet does not seem to be accurate. In conclusion, the applicant has submitted a revised site plan that illustrates the sidewalk to be relocated in the right-of-way and to be matching size. The applicant should submit a revised site plan that accurately measures the road center line to the proposed parking spaces. The applicant would also be required to submit a modification application to the Zoning Board of Appeals to reference the appropriate site plan. It is the opinion of the planning department that placing the sidewalks within the right-of-way of South Euclid Avenue is most consistent with the design of downtown Montauk, based on the downtown Montauk study and prior approvals of neighboring site plans from both the planning board and Zoning Board of Appeals. I would note one thing that I have omitted that I should have included is that should the sidewalk be used for public purposes and is located on the property itself, there should be some sort of easement in place for public access. I make mention of that because I understand from the survey, there is one side that is in the right of way, and there are other portions of the sidewalk that are on the property itself, which may be used for public access. So I would just add that one more detail.
Very good. And Marco, thank you for all four of these. They're all comprehensive and to the point, and which is what we need on these. All right, Ms. Burke, would you like to be heard on this?
Sure. Good evening, Chairman and members of the board. And Marco, thank you for your thorough review on this. I appreciate it. As Marco stated, we applied for an extension of time in June of this year, and that was granted pending a modification to the site plan that addressed the parking. Because between the time this was approved in 2018 and now, the property two buildings down had been improved and the sidewalks no longer lined up. So that was brought to my attention by Eric Shantz, the Assistant Planning Director, sometime, I would say, in the spring, early summer. And he had suggested that we submit the modification. So we went back and forth about what makes the most sense as far as doing the extension of time first or the modification, and decided it makes sense to do the extension of time first so that application can be active, and then we'll submit for the modification. So point being, this has been in the works for a little while, trying to figure out how to make this cohesive. So we got that extension of time in June, pending the modification. In between now and then, I met with Marco in the planning department in August, where we discussed submitting the revised site plan that pulls the sidewalk into the right of way to line up with the one 2 doors down. Eric Shantz had given me sort of a mock-up of how, everyone wanted it to be seen. So I brought that back to Drew Bennett, the engineer who did the original approval and designed this for us. The parking lines up with the parking 2 doors down. The sidewalks now line up. I guess my only concern or question for the board is I was happy to submit a survey. I just wish that would have been brought up sometime between June and now. We're ready for a building permit. We got an extension of time from the zoning board. We got an extension of time from the ARB. We got your extension of time. The only thing we had to do was submit a modification where the sidewalks line up. The sidewalks now line up. The parking lines up with all the neighboring properties. Nothing else has changed. So just in the interest of time, we hope that the information we've provided in conjunction with that sketch from the downtown Montauk study that shows how in a 70-foot right-of-way, there's ample room. We hope that that's enough, just so that we can keep this moving forward and get our building permit. So that's my only comment on that element. We have no problem providing the public access easement on the property that Marco had just mentioned. I think those were in the comments from the town's consulting engineer for the properties across the street. And it certainly makes sense to do that in this one as well. We didn't have to do it at the initial review. However, it makes logical sense, so no problem. And then my only other comment is with regards to the modification in front of the zoning board granted variances for the number of parking spaces required on site because we didn't meet that by bringing them out into the road right away. So if you read through the zoning board resolution, 11 spaces are required, 7 are being improved on site, 4 are being put in the road right of way. That condition still exists. So nothing's changing in the zoning board determination. Their determination is still valid. We submitted and I actually went back and forth with Eric Shantz about this, about whether or not we were going to need to submit for a modification. We were emailing back and forth in August about it. And my impression was that we weren't going to need a modification in front of them. We had the extension of time granted September 15th. So that was after the planning board met asking us to do the modification. and the zoning board granted the extension of time. And my impression was that we thought it would be enough to put a letter in the file to the zoning board, including a copy of the new site plan that still shows the parking in the road right away, just like they granted. The only change is the sidewalk, which had nothing to do with them. So again, in the interest of time, we'd love for this to be done today so that we can wrap this up and move on and get our building permit.
Can I just clarify two things? First of all, I think Tara's right. I didn't catch that when I was reviewing Marco's memo. You know, he was just being consistent with the fact that when you have an application that has, needed approvals from multiple boards, that if you do a modification, the plan should match with those boards. But in this case, the zoning board, the relief wasn't from, let's say a setback, a structure from a wetland, and then that setback was being relocated or something like that. The relief was from the number of on-site parking spaces, which has not changed. So I don't believe this needs a modification application from the Zoning Board of Appeals. The only thing, and I don't know that this holds it up, but Marco pointed out that, and you can see it on the map there, there's a notation that says it's about 30 feet from the parking spaces to the approximate center line of the road. If you look at the aerial, I think that Drew Bennett, when he drew this plan, he just made it a little misleading because the little arrows on the end of that 30-foot measure go to the end of the parking spaces. It's 30 feet from the edge of the property to the center line of the road. So that would include the parking spaces as well. That's a little bit confusing the way that that's drawn. I don't know that it's the end of the world. But basically, I just wanted to reiterate that Tara is right. We asked her and her client to do this, to submit this modification request so that we could have the sidewalks line up. But I just wanted to clarify that they, they're otherwise complete and they don't need to go to the zoning board for a modification. That's all.
What about the survey?
Sorry?
The applicant had an issue, I think, with the survey.
The applicant did?
Yeah, I thought, unless I misunderstood.
No, that's correct. We're just hoping that this plan is enough, that we don't also need to submit a copy of, there's a copy of the survey of the property in the board's file from the initial approval. And my understanding from Marco's memo, and Marco, correct me if I'm wrong, you just wanted another survey that shows the road width. And I'm just asking if the board could not require that at this point, just because we did what we were asked to do. And that this is the first time I'm hearing that you want that as well. No, I don't think anything's going to change because of that. This lines up with the neighboring properties, which is what you asked for.
Yeah, the notation is there of the distance to the approximate center line. It's just a little misleading because of the arrows there, but that is that distance isn't, there's not a 30-foot wide single lane there. That distance is the approximate center line to the edge of the property. So it includes those parking spaces. It's a little bit misleading, but I don't know that it's the end of the world.
Eric, where is that line from? Is it from where the sidewalks, the end of the sidewalk, and where the parking spot begins?
No, it would be to the property line.
So it would include
to the edge of the
30
sidewalk.
feet. The 30 feet would include the 4-foot sidewalk.
No, the 30 feet goes to the front of the parking spaces. And then so it's 30.5, right, to the front of the parking spaces. Then you have your 4-foot wide sidewalk. So 34.5 plus 34.5.
So if the parking space, how long is the parking space? Is it 14 feet?
20.
Oh,
those are 20 or 18.
20.
18 feet?
Let's see.
Yeah, they can be 20 or 18. I'm not sure. You'd have to look at the plan. You'd have to scale it out. I don't see a scale there.
Well, if it's 20, that means you don't have the 12 feet that you need for the road. If it's 18, you have just the right amount
I mean, that number that Drew wrote is clearly incorrect in some capacity, but does it matter? I mean, we all know that
Well,
it could fit.
we're trying to determine, and this is going to come up with the other properties. We're trying to determine whether there's going to be enough roadway to meet the minimum requirement width of the roadway.
I would just recommend that the applicant submit a revision to accurately depict where that measurement is coming from.
We're happy to do that.
That would solve.
Yeah, I would clarify though, you need a minimum 12-foot wide lane,
right,
to the center line. So if you subtract, it's irrelevant actually whether or not that line is to the front of the parking space or to the property line. They would still have the distance.
Well, okay, correct me if I'm wrong, but not the property line, but where the sidewalk ends, the width of the sidewalk ends, which is where the front of the car would meet the sidewalk in that type of parking. Okay, from that point to the center line of the road, you're telling me, according to Drew Bennett, is 30 feet. Right?
Yeah, again, that's the problem, is that the notation there is not clear.
The notation's incorrect. I just scaled it out, and the parking spaces are shown as 9 by 20. So that's impossible, right? If we know the road is 70 feet wide, the road right away, you can't have 30 plus 20, that's 50, and then that makes a 100-foot road, right? So,
all right, we need to get this cleared up.
My question though, if you could just, I'm sorry to interrupt. It fit 2 doors down, and you wanted us to line it up with that. So we did. Our initial approved site plan has the sidewalk on the property and the parking pulled in 4 feet, which we were happy to keep, but the board asked us to pull it out to line up the sidewalks. So
right, I think Tara has a good point. You know, we asked them to remedy this, and they did.
Mm-hmm.
I think this incorrect note is throwing everybody a little bit. If we could just correct that figure, I think we'd be okay, because this was a voluntary move on their part to help us out with that zigzaggy sidewalk business that was going on.
Yeah, that's a really good point, Kathy. I mean, it's like I feel like we're just at the point of getting it right, and let's take it all the way and get it.
No, I sympathize with the applicant, not just this one, but also the other ones, and I hope that the measurements come in so that we don't have a problem. I'm really hoping for that, because I understand what these applicants have gone through, and I sympathize with that. But nevertheless, that particular item, as the width of the roadway, is very important. I think it's the most important element on all of these applications. And I understand that we asked them to make all of these changes, and we took our time, and it took time, and they acquiesced to everything. So, and I appreciate that. But this is where we are. So we can't, just because it took a long time and we asked them to do these other things, we can't just forego this other requirement of the width of the roadway.
I do want to be, cognizant of the applicant's concerns and, willingness to work with us. Ms. Burke, does this present any significant issue for you at this point?
No, I'm happy to revise the number on there. I agree it should be accurate. I think just where this one differs from some of the other ones that you're discussing tonight is this is an approved site plan with approved parking. Right. So this is not a brand new site.
No,
and
it's a modification.
A big distinction. So,
yeah, no, I agree. This is of the four, this is the only one that is a modification. So right. Okay, so
the other thing I see on that note, I agree with Lou that this is an important detail. The other thing in the note, it says approximate road center line, right? So is that what it's supposed to be measuring to, the center line or the?
Sure looks like it.
Okay. So we're just gonna correct where that arrow starts and ends, and it's gonna stay the center line of the road?
Last time we don't change center lines of roads.
No, but I mean, Lou's point about you need, what do you need, Lou? 12
feet.
Yeah. So we have to show, that would be an important dimension to put in there, that you have 12 feet. That's really the key dimension.
Marco, I think when you had the plan zoomed in earlier on the top left over there, isn't that a parking space with dimensions? Or I can't really see it closely enough, but I think that there's something that shows 18 feet.
Yeah, that's really, that's a standard handicap space. That isn't necessarily the other spaces. But the spaces should be 18 feet in depth. You know, that makes it work. I'm not sure if they're shown here as 20, but they should be 18.
Okay. All right. Sorry to interrupt.
Very good. Okay. Anybody else? Anything? Okay, in that case.
Yeah. I would like.
Ian, I'm sorry. I apologize.
I think it's my.
You know, my bad. Please go ahead.
That's okay. I do
some discussion.
Well, I was just waiting patiently. I'm always curious to hear what other members think too. I sympathize with the applicant here, but I have to say that I'm pretty uncomfortable with this, and maybe I'm misremembering the last meeting. I think we wanted to make sure the sidewalks lined up at the edge of the property. I don't think I was asking, and I don't recall the entire board asking that the whole sidewalk be pushed out. And we've talked about this with other applications in the neighborhood, and I think this one, particularly at an intersection, is even more difficult. And our code allows for 18-foot parking spaces, but also 20-foot parking spaces. So here we are with it's a compliant parking space, but right on a public street and right up against a sidewalk. And it's 2 feet shorter than our bigger parking space. So the numbers, I think, do work technically. Look, I'll just say right off the bat that I'm not an expert here, and I know our planning department has recommended this go through, and so I guess I'm not dug in over it, but I just have to voice my concerns that we have the minimum roadway width, the smallest parking space, and a sidewalk all crammed in. And Tara's right that this is an approved plan, but we're taking an approved plan and then moving it 4 feet out, I believe it's 4 feet, towards the road. And geez, that seems like a bad idea to me. Again, I will admit that I'm a lay person here, and I've got great respect for the planning department who knows more than me, but I just wanted to voice those concerns and then throw it to the rest of the board to see what everyone thinks.
Well, thank you, Ian. Let me put it out to the board. Does anyone else have a comment on this? I know, Lou, you've had a couple of things to say. Anybody else?
How about parallel parking?
I think we talked about that, didn't we? And
it would fit. You got 80 feet there.
I mean, there's a lot of character, I don't call it character in the community, but is that inconsistent with the way Montauk is?
I'm not suggesting that either. I mean, just to be very clear, look, I don't want to delay this. I understand it's been a process. Partially, that's what happens, though, if you need extensions of time. Not that we'd be punitive about that, but we have to look at the situation on the ground. I think that they definitely deserve head-in parking. I don't think we should drastically change the site plan. They're asking for a modification, and I get it. That's part of a discussion with the planning department. But I don't think our board gave very clear directive last time that the whole sidewalk should be moved out. I could be wrong about that, but I've had reservations about this concept on both sides of the street from the beginning.
Well, my client would be perfectly happy to put it back to what we had approved 4 feet further in on the property and call it a day. I mean,
well, is there a way to just bridge the gap at the point at which the sidewalks don't line up, so there is a jog in it to minimize the amount of?
Just suggesting to dogleg it,
kind of like across the street, right? Like the proposed across the street.
Yeah, I mean,
for the same reason. I mean, I'm very sympathetic. See, I don't mean to be giving you the runaround, and that's why I'm trying to say that I might be wrong here. I just have concerns about the safety. I really do.
No, I get it. You guys want to do the best thing possible, and I fully understand that. I guess I just want to know what to do.
I understand. And as far as the survey, like I don't want this to be onerous. Like the numbers, I get the numbers are the numbers. You display the survey. I don't want to ask that of you, but substantively, I just don't think it's the right idea, even though it would be a straight line. I just don't think it's a good idea to move.
Well, is the property in between, forgive my, I live in Montauk and should know this but is the property next door is vacant, right? The one in between?
Yeah,
it's an approved plan.
I think so.
Oh, it has an approved plan.
92 South Euclid is the property next door.
Oh, right. That's 92. Okay.
Yeah.
So
if you guys want to go back to having the sidewalk on the property, then that's the plan that was originally approved. I'll say Tara is here because, she and I met, Marco also met, and we asked them to get a modification, and the board denied the extension of time, saying that you need to get a modification. We want the sidewalks to line up. But if you guys want the sidewalk back on the property, then basically they just go back to their approved site plan, and then you grant them the extension of time, and then they get a building permit.
Well, the only thing is that they have to change the size of the sidewalk. That's it.
Yeah, well, that's true. Yeah.
Well,
for some reason it was 5 feet, which is weird.
If it was on our property at 5 feet, that's fine. I mean,
yeah.
What is Ian trying to say?
I'm sorry. Yeah.
Well, I think the sidewalks do have to line up so that you can walk down a sidewalk without jumping over. I thought that the issue was just where the properties meet to make that work. Because isn't the problem?
It is. And that's what you guys wanted on 92 South Euclid. So we wanted this one modified to match up. But I mean, you can do a dog leg. We're trying to avoid that. I mean, if you go further down this block, the town parking lot has the sidewalk on the property, and then the Kozura property at the end of the town sidewalk has the sidewalk in the right of way, which is, the established pattern then for the rest of this block. But there's an L shape, there's a dog leg that comes out to Kozura. It looks a little silly, but it's not the end of the world doing that. I mean, we're going through all these, insane machinations to try and get these things to line up. And if it doesn't make sense, then that's fine. I can see the argument too of having the, I think it makes sense to have the sidewalk in the right of way for the majority, if not all of the block. I can see the argument for the 2 corner lots to have the sidewalk be on the subject property because it gives you a little bit of extra width in the lanes there when people are making the turning movements. But regardless, the math works. And I honestly don't think it's a bad thing if you have a relatively narrow lane there. It's a natural traffic calming thing in an area of town where people tend to come flying down that street towards the post office, down that hill. But whichever way the board wants it, you can do it that way. We're just trying to be consistent with the other site plans on the block. You have one that was already built that has the sidewalk in the right of way, one that's immediately next door that, the board felt the sidewalk should be in the right of way. And then you had this one that was approved with the sidewalk on the property. So we asked them denied them an extension of time and told them to come back in for a modification to put the sidewalk in the right of way. If you don't want the sidewalk in the right of way and you want it back on the property, then they revert back to their approved site plan grant them their extension of time, and they'll be on their way, whichever the board wants.
Look, I think one of our problems has really been that we're unable to really look at all of this comprehensively, right? To look at all four of these things as a sort of a unit, right? We've been trying to evaluate each one independently. And I think, most of us have had issues, from the very beginning about, how dangerous this condition is at this corner, because people, as you say, scream down that hill from Essex Street, down Euclid. And, it is very concerning, and I've had the same reservations that Ian has had from the very beginning. And I really do sympathize, Tara, with your situation here. I don't remember us specifically saying push it back out again into the right of way, but I do think that if you were willing to move it onto the property, as we've asked the people across the street to do, it really will create a much safer situation for that corner. And if that's something that's possible, and from what Eric says, it sounds like procedurally it's a easy thing to do. I think we should do. My opinion is we should do it.
Yeah, I just want to piggyback on that. To me, what this has been an evolving process, and I understand at one point we thought it was a good idea to line up the sidewalks. And, that might have been a mistake. We just didn't, it hadn't evolved to the point where it's evolved now, where we realize that, in my opinion, that it's much more important to have a safe roadway and enough width for traffic than it is to have sidewalks line up. I don't think it's such a big deal to have a zigzag or an L shape. It would be preferable to have it all lined up. But when you compare having that to having a very narrow, possibly below standard width, because if Eric is right, if you have if there's 30 feet from the sidewalk to the center line, and you have a 20-foot parking space, and if you park a big old pickup truck, you're going to need all of that 20 feet. That leaves you with only 10 feet of width, which is below the standard. On this corner, where like Ed just said, that you have cars coming down from West Essex Street onto South Euclid. So anyway, in recap, to me, if I had to choose between a zigzag sidewalk and a wider road, I would definitely go for the wider road.
And just another point of reference, any truck with a super cab, a rear back seat, even a short 6-foot bed, is over 19 feet long. You have an 8-foot bed. I mean, this is a fishing village. Those trucks are very common, and you're looking at 22 feet long, or almost 22 feet long. So I look, I don't mean to throw a wrench in the works here. Very sympathetic for the applicant. My goal is, however we come down on this, we do whatever we can to help them get to the finish line, because I don't mean to be jerking them around. But I'm with Lou on this, and I think it's better. I'd rather have the zigzag than, confined space. And if Eric or anybody else in the planning department wants to really tell me I'm wrong, I may be. So I'm open to listening.
Let's hear from Eric, and then if any other board members want to chime in on this. We got to give the applicant some guidance here. We can't let this end.
I agree. I think it's one or the other.
Without knowing. So.
Yeah, I don't think that you're wrong. We were, during these discussions, I think the guidance was that we wanted to get the sidewalks to line up. So, we kind of directed the applicant accordingly. But I totally see the reasoning behind, at the very least on the corner lots, having them on the subject property, because it gives you a wider lane at the intersection. That is, in fact, the way that the board is moving forward with the South Essex corner on the northern side of the street, which Andrew Strong is here for. So, if that's the way that the board wants to do it, that's fine. It honestly, we put the applicant through the having to do a modification, but it actually makes it easier for them. They have an approved plan that has that design. So you can do it either way. Either way the math works. if you want to get a wider lane at that intersection, I totally get it. It makes it safer, for the turning movements. But, I'll leave it to the board. The board, the conversations have been very back and forth about what has been prioritized on this block. So I'll just leave it to the board's discussion and, whichever way you want to go.
I agree with Ian, Lou, Ed, and Ed. Wider road trumps lined up sidewalk.
Kathy, Sharon?
Well, it sounds like it's also the easier way to go for the applicant. So yeah, I think it's the, we should go in that direction.
Kathy,
My only worry about the sidewalk is, I feel like we're chasing our tails on this sidewalk business on this street. We just keep going around and around in this same circle. I do understand and fully support the idea of a broader street, but I thought that one of the reasons we asked the sidewalks to the applicant to align with the sidewalk was for the handicapped access, that when you have a jog, if anybody's in a wheelchair along the, accessing that sidewalk, then they've got to make a funky turn. That was my recollection of why we asked them to align the sidewalk with the existing one. I personally, I just think we have limited geography here, and we're trying to, that was my primary concern, was having the sidewalks match up so that a wheelchair could access it without difficulty. That was my sense. That's why I thought we did it. Frankly, I thought that was why we gave them that advice. Now, all these other things are compelling. We finally have an engineer's drawing of it. We understand what the width is and all the rest. And yes, it's the corner lot and it all makes sense. On some level, they're competing interests for me. I don't know. I'm a little stuck to, I think both are important and we can't have both. So I guess the lesser of the two evils is to go with the jog and the sidewalk, but it feels like we should have thought that one through before. I don't know. I feel a little.
Yeah, I'm with you, Kathy. I'm like,
about it.
Yeah, I'm like,
The scales, yeah.
But let me ask the applicant, the wider sidewalk, the wider street versus you just want to know which one it is, right?
Yeah.
You just want guidance. All right.
And I guess my only question would be, if the board goes back to what was approved with the sidewalks on the property and the parking spaces pulled in a little, because I do understand where you're coming from. So it's, although it's a little frustrating and crazy making, like I fully understand why you're having this sort of back and forth pull, but I guess my only question would be, how can I move forward as quickly as possible? Do I need to submit another plan that shows an L if you choose to pull it on site? Then my next question is, do I need to submit a plan that either shows an L, like between the municipal lot and Kazura, or show a diagonal, which I'm not quite sure how that's going to work, between the property, like the proposed ones across the street, or can I just use my approved plan?
So let me do this. Let me make a suggestion, because it sounds to me like there's a preference for the wider street. Eric, do you have the aerial that we can just one last showing the dog leg, if you will, from the town's property to the neighboring lot, so that we know what we're agreeing to? Maybe you can tighten in a little bit on.
Well, this will show you that dog leg that we're talking about.
All right. Well, so the sidewalk maintains its width as it makes the turn.
Yeah, and that should be fine. I'm not familiar with any issue with ADA as long as it's a minimum 4 feet in width.
Oh, yeah, you can, that's what I'm saying, a wheelchair could negotiate that.
Yeah.
I mean,
The only, if I could just jump in for a sec, the only thing that would change is if we have to create that L, right? That L has to be on our property, right? So if the L were coming in, then I'm just wondering if our parking space has to move over a couple feet. Do you know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, it probably would.
4 feet.
Yeah.
Do they lose a spot?
No,
I don't think so. There's ample space.
It just gets pushed 4 feet closer to the intersection. That's all.
Marco's saying there's ample space.
Yeah, I think the I mean, it sounds like the board, the majority wants the sidewalk back on the property. I think probably the path of least resistance is to continue with this modification, but have I forget who it was who drew up the plan, Drew Bennett, I thought. Yeah. Have him draw it up. There was another weird thing where the sidewalk was 5 feet in width, which I mean,
we all fix that since we have to fix the plan anyway.
Yeah. I'd fix that maybe, and then have him draw a dog leg type connection to 92 South Euclid, and we'll bring it back, and hopefully that's the last time we'll discuss this one.
No, notice that pickup truck in the parking.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
I think that
illustrates the point.
Sometimes you get just the right photograph. So there you go. All right, Tara, Ms. Burke, I think you have a sense of where we're going with this, right?
Yeah, my only request would be when we do resubmit, if it could be some level of priority to get it back on. We're desperately trying to get a building permit.
Got it. Eric, that won't be a problem, I presume?
No, not if you don't want it to be. Well, if you want us to prioritize it, we will.
Well, look, this application it's got whiskers on it, so let's try and get it through and get it done.
We're going to get that dimension correction too on them.
Yeah, you're going to have to. Yeah, well, we accomplished that a while ago.
Sorry for the difficulty, and thank you, Tara, for such a good attitude.
Yeah, really. Thanks, Tara, for hanging in with us. Yeah.
Let the applicant know that we appreciate the cooperation,
and we should be as simple as possible from here on out.
All right. So now at the risk of continuing down this road, so to speak, we will from Mark on South Essex Corner, and my apologies to Mr. Strong and Ms. Burke. Which one who has this one?
Oh, is this
Andrew?
You, Andrew? And again, I have to make my disclaimer that the applicant's representative is my son-in-law, and I feel I can be fair and impartial in reviewing the application.
Okay, and Ed, you're the point person on this?
Yes.
So, we've accomplished so much tonight. Go ahead, Mark.
Okay, this is an application to construct a 2-story, 2,000 square foot building with a first floor retail and deck and a second floor apartment with a porch and an unfinished basement on a vacant parcel, which was across the street from the parcel we just spoke about before on South Essex Street. It's currently vegetated, zoned CB. Very quickly, the comments have been received from the town's consulting engineer regarding the applicant's proposed grading, drainage, and pavement plans. The full memo has been attached for the planning board's review. Summarized points are that any portion of the sidewalk intended for general public use and located on private property should be provided for parking stalls at the front of the site and the alley. Test hole data indicates suitable drainage soils at an approximate depth of 10 feet below grade. The proposed drainage structures are specified to be 10 feet in diameter and 8 feet deep. Consideration should be given to extending the drainage structures deeper into well-drained soils. The planning department notes that the applicant should demonstrate that the site will connect cohesively with proper grading and neighboring parcel 93 South Euclid Avenue. The planning department also notes the proposed parking in the right-of-way of South Euclid Avenue appears to have sufficient space, although greater confirmation should be provided by the applicant's site plan with a depiction of a road center line. In summary, additional grading, drainage, and pavement details will be required to ensure that the site can maintain rain runoff, adequate parking, and ADA compliance. The site plan is also pending approval for multiple variances and an NRSP from the Zoning Board of Appeals. The Planning Board has already sent comments to ZBA and speaking in favor of the parking variances and NRSP. The application was discussed during their October 26, 2021 meeting. No decision has been made by the ZBA, although it was noted that the additional planting details, such as drainage, should continue their revisions to the Planning Board, and any updated plans will need to be resubmitted to the ZBA for final determination. One of the ZBA members had expressed that the proposed sycamore maple is considered an invasive species and should be replaced with a native tree. In conclusion, the Planning Board should review the engineer's report and provide any comments to the applicant. Revised plans should demonstrate that the placement of the sidewalk and parking spaces will maintain the minimum width required for roadways. In addition, all storm water runoff should be managed on the project site.
Okay, thank you very much, Marco. Andrew, Mrs. Strong, go right ahead.
I don't have too much to add, just to say that we have now received the comments from the town engineer, and we are in the process of adopting all of them. I believe that we're currently waiting to pick up some spot elevations on the road that weren't previously done, but which the engineer needs to implement the plan from the town engineer. But otherwise, we intend to incorporate all of those, all of the recommendations from the town engineer on the drainage. With respect to the sycamore maple, I think we've already indicated to the zoning board that we'll replace it with a non-invasive native tree. I believe it was a dogwood that we selected. And we'll go, but that we plan to go from there. And with that in mind, trying to move as quickly as possible to complete this application.
All right, very well. This is Ed. You've got this one.
I do, yeah. Thank you, Marco. Thank you, Andrew. Yeah, this is another one that's been kicking around for a while. And thanks, Andrew, for being open to the town engineer's comments. I know he first commented back in April, I think, and you made some early kind of revisions to the drainage plan. And this is a tricky site. We know drainage is an issue here, right? And particularly as it relates to 93 South Euclid, which is the next project we're going to be looking at. So thank you for being willing to just adopt all of his recommendations, including the deeper dry wells and moving one of the dry wells into the alley. I think that's important. The issue of the on-site easement, I think let's not forget about that one. I think that this also applies to the Beckman situation. If we move back on site again, we will need some, as I understand it, an easement to have public access on the property, on the lot. Parking situation, it's the same thing we've been talking about, right? And I think, we need to also be certain that we've got the correct distance to center line. It just, as we were just talking about for the project across the street, I think that we do. I think that though we were looking at 18-foot stalls here, is that correct?
These are 18 feet.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. So let's just, as we're redoing the survey here, let's make sure that we locate center line and make sure we've got what we need there. It's going to be tricky though, right?
Yeah. Well.
Hey.
I'm glad
Isn't that tricky though? Because I think the argument was made previously that the sidewalk could have been in the right of way, which seems to mean that there's 4 extra feet if it's not. So is it tricky mathematically?
Well, I know this survey though shows it on the property though, right?
Yeah.
It's already been moved.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. So that I think that's the relief. You know.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
It would have worked 4 feet out, so it's got to work now.
Yeah. Okay. So let's just plot the center line and see and be certain and confirm that. But yeah, you're right, Ian. That's true. That's the math.
I guess we're getting straight lines for as long as we possibly can.
Yeah. So we're good on that. So thanks, Andrew. Look forward to the next round.
I'm sorry. Is that it?
Yeah.
Okay. Does anyone else have anything they want to add on this one? So, hearing none, I suppose we all agree that the applicant should submit revised plans addressing the concerns in the consulting engineer's memo.
Yep.
All around, folks?
Yep.
Yes.
Thank you very much. It's a strong thank you very much.
All right.
And now, back to Ms. Burke.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Have a good night.
You're good. Have a good night. I only know that it's Ms. Burke if she's still on. Otherwise, she would have been gone. All right. Last one from tonight is Pete's Garden. Marco, that's you. Lou, that's you. And Ms. Burke, that's you. Go ahead, Marco.
So this application is right next door to the one we just discussed. It's to construct an outdoor storage yard with 3 on-site parking spaces, 7 in the right-of-way spaces, a sidewalk, and additional fencing on a cleared parcel zone CB. The applicant is proposing a garden center use with an associated commercial landscaping use. The parcel is used as an extension of the neighboring commercial property to the immediate west, known as Pete's Potting Shed. There is no principal building structure, and the site is currently used for retail and the outdoor display of trees, shrubbery, and plants and parking. So similarly, comments have been received from the town's consulting engineer regarding the applicant's proposed grading, drainage, and pavement plans. The following are summarized points. Any portion of the sidewalk intended for public use should on private property should have on-site easement, spot elevations, and percent slope for sidewalk construction. That should be provided as well, and demonstrate compliance with ADA. Pavement and surfacing improvements for parking stalls within South Euclid Avenue should also be provided. Limits of the entire roadway pavement, including centerline pavement, marking should be shown. Plans should demonstrate that the stormwater runoff and designated drainage areas would be properly contained and managed. This is areas concerned include the parking stalls, gravel area at the front of the site. The existing block wall located adjacent to the rear parking stalls is subject to a vehicle surcharge load. Confirmation should be provided to ensure that it is capable of such surcharge load. The planning department notes that the applicant should demonstrate that the site will connect cohesively with proper grading with neighboring parcel 97 South Essex Street. The planning department also notes that the parking, similarly, proposed parking in the right of way appears to have sufficient space, although that should be confirmed by a depiction of a center line. And so in conclusion, the planning board should review the engineer's report and provide any comments to the applicant. A revised plan should demonstrate the sidewalk and parking spaces will maintain a minimum width, and that stormwater runoff should be managed on the project site.
Okay, Ms. Burke.
I don't really have many comments on this one. We're in receipt of the town's consulting engineer's comments, and we've discussed them with him at length. Our engineer has discussed them with him, and we're in the process of working on them. I think the only other outstanding element from the board's memo from the last time we were in front of you at a work session before these comments came in was that we have not yet submitted to the zoning board. And that is something we are looking to do. We were just waiting for confirmation on the parking being where it is and the sidewalk where it is, and then we're happy to submit to the zoning board. Our understanding is typically the planning board will send a memo in support to the zoning board of appeals. And we'd rather just wait until we have some level of assurance from you that this is what you want before we submit to them.
Okay, very good. I'm sorry, Lou, I think this is yours. So,
Sarah, can you explain to me what the engineer means? I wasn't quite sure. I mean, I have an idea, but I need clarification. on his number 5 comment about the drainage design, where the leaching catch basins are in the parking area, the front parking area, and he doesn't understand how the runoff is going to be led into those catch basins. What is the issue there?
I'm not an engineer, so I'm not entirely sure.
Okay.
I know Vinny
Where are
Gaudiello.
those? Are they shown on the site plan that we're looking at now?
Yeah, they're along the property line between the Pete's Garden Center and this lot. Those little rectangles down on the bottom. Those are the catch basins. And then there's the, so I guess it's the western property line. So yeah, okay, along the southern property line there, in front of the parking spaces, and then along the western, those are the catch basins. And I talked to Vinny Gaudiello about it. It was after he had spoken to Ed Armis, our engineer, and he said he explained it all to him. So I figured if they were on the same page with the nuances of it, but I think he was essentially concerned that if they were going to be large enough, or if the way they were all connecting together, I don't know, something where they both seemed to know what they were talking about.
All right. Well, I guess they'll work it out. It's beyond my pay grade to understand it right now, but
mine too.
Anyway, the only other issue, again, I hate to be, harp on this thing, but I went to the site and I parked my car all the way up to the wall, which is, that's not the way, once the property is improved, there's going to be a sidewalk there. So you won't be able to park, as I did, to the edge of the wall. But anyway, I parked to the edge of the wall, and then I measured from the rear of my car to the center line of the road. And lo and behold, it was 16 feet. So if you put a sidewalk, which is 4 feet, you'll have exactly 12 feet of width, which is what you need. That's the minimum. So, I mean, I did a very rough measurement. So, but I'll look forward to the engineer's report on that part of his analysis. And hopefully, I really am hoping that there is enough, because, I'd hate to, with all the work and all the time that the applicant has put in with this, I'd hate for something like that to bring it back to ground zero again. But anyway, that's my only issue with it, and good luck with that.
All right. Does any of the board members have any comments? The only inquiry we have to make on this one is whether the applicant should be submitting revised plans addressing concerns raised by the consulting engineer, as was the case with the last application. Anybody else have anything?
Nope.
Nope. Okay, then that would be the comments. So, with that, again, Ms. Burke, thank you for sticking out to the end, but you live in Montauk, so you're used to being at the end.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Sarah.
Yeah, it was too easy, and I live in Waynesville. All right. Before we cover the few matters that we have on the regular meeting, I just want to mention to the board, again, be on the lookout for some notes from me about continuing education requirements. And the other thing that I wanted to mention is that we, as matters present, or as they had been planned way back when, next week's was going to be the last meeting, but it looks like we're going to need to do a meeting on December 15th, because we got so jammed up with the Wayne Scott Commercial Center that it created a very big backlog of, I'm told, something around 15 matters.
Actually, can you guys hear me? Because I see my video died.
Yeah.
The exact number is 21.
Yikes!
And there's actually probably more than that.
How many do you think you can safely put into the following year's queue?
Maybe half of them.
Oh, but well, that leaves 11 matters. So you and I, look, Eric, you and I will talk, and we'll figure out, how to best accommodate our time. But I regret to say that we're going to probably need to have a meeting on the 15th. So
I'm gonna work it out and see what we can do tomorrow to finalize the agenda for next week. Maybe we don't have to do that, but yeah, we do have a very large backlog, and it's all because of Wayne Scott.
Yeah. All right. Okay. With that, let me. Does anyone else have anything before we go into regular meeting? Anyone? Okay. All right. Let me do a board review. Regarding the board of review of the request of Kyle Allen for a building permit at 9 Eau Claire Street in Springs, lots number 1 through 5 and 31 through 35, block 23, urban renewal parcel 97, Suffolk County tax map number 300-62-4-13.1. I have read the board of review, and it is satisfactory. The undertaking is in the amount of $20,000. In this particular matter, the review shall be subject to a review 1 year from now. I move for its approval.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passed and carried. Okay, we have two. We already did the resolution on Wayne Scott Commercial, so that leaves CMP SJ lot line modification. Motion to schedule a public hearing. Lou, that's yours.
Okay, in the matter of the application of CMP SJ lot line modification, Suffolk County tax map number 300-176-8-22, 23. This notice to schedule a public hearing. It's hereby scheduled to be held at Town Hall, 159 Pantago Road, East Hampton, on Wednesday, January 12th, 2022 at 7 p.m. or as soon thereafter as this matter may be heard to consider the application. I have read the resolution and I move for its adoption.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Passed and carried 7-0. After Colin Tepper, I have one more thing to mention.
Yeah.
Quick question,
Yeah.
Sam. So it says it's a town hall. Does this mean we're moving back to in person?
Oh, good catch.
You might be able to tell us any hope on this, or do they not tell you anything anymore? Well, Jody, anyone? I haven't heard anything.
Well, we're in a state of emergency. I think that's until the 15th, right? The state, Governor Hochul declared a state of emergency over the Thanksgiving holiday.
The 15th of what, December?
No, I think it's the 15th of January.
So what are we
I read
doing?
that somewhere. Huh?
Then why are we in town hall on it?
I would just assume it's an error. I can't.
Eric,
I think that has to be discovered.
Let's, Eric, for the next meeting, in case we need to redo this notice, and we'll have enough time if we get it on for the 12th, let's make sure that we have the place correct. All right? It may need checking with the powers that be over at the town board. But let's make sure this hearing notice is right. As it's just pointed out, right now it's scheduled for live and in person. Let's make sure that that's actually going to happen.
Good catch. Yeah.
Thank you, Ed.
I'll do my best, but you can't always get a straight answer.
No, I know.
I'm not sure what's going to happen.
It's a moving target, and through nobody's fault other than COVID. But let's see if we can't get it right, because if we have to change the meeting notice to make it a virtual, then we should have time if we can get it on for the next meeting.
And we can just amend this to make the all of the Zoom language in there, which would be the same thing to do.
So we would have both.
No, we take town hall out and put the Zoom language in.
Yeah, I'm assuming that it's not a big deal to do that. I just want to make sure that we do it for next week, because if we do it for next week, then we'll have enough time for the publication and everything else against the January 12th hearing date.
Well, Jody, are you saying we could do that on the fly right now?
We can do that. We can amend this and we can put the Zoom language in there now.
Should we do that right now?
Yes.
James, you're shaking your head, yes? Okay.
Yes, because worst case scenario is by the time that date happens, if you are in person, you will just also have, you'll have to have the public hearing via Zoom. You'll have to just comply with the original reso.
Okay, so then would Lou kindly amend his resolution to reflect that the public hearing will be held in accordance with Zoom protocols?
Yes.
You want me to read that out?
No, just say, yes, I agree.
Yes, I agree that
There we go.
we amend it that fashion.
As amended.
All those in favor of Lou's motion as amended?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passed and carried as amended. All right, and again, I have one quick thing after we do Cohen Tech. Sharon, it's yours.
Yeah. In the matter of the application of Cohen Tepper lot line modification, tax map number 300-167-3-3 includes lots 14, 15, 16, and 17. I have read this resolution and move for its adoption.
Second.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Passed and carried all around, 7-0. Okay. Before we take a motion to adjourn.
Was that a public hearing notice? Sorry, I didn't. Sharon, was that?
No, it's a lot line modification.
Okay, thanks.
Before we take a motion to adjourn, this is a point of personal privilege and pleasure. Please, all of you, keep Monday, December 20th at 5 p.m. clear, 5 to 6:30 p.m. to be even more specific, and try and get yourselves into town, somewhere in the neighborhood of Rowdy Hall, on Monday the 20th at 5 p.m. I think it's 5. Well, you'll know soon enough. So that's just a heads up. So anyway, be also speaking of heads up, keep your eyes on emails for continuing education issues and opportunities, and also whether or not we're going to have 1 or 2 more meetings left. With that, anyone else have anything else?
Do you think Santa might be in town on the 20th?
I don't know about Santa, but I think it may be out of Santa's above his pay grade, to use a phrase that I heard earlier tonight. So, but you all know what I'm talking about. Yeah. So, does anyone seriously have anything else we need to talk about, cover, new business at all? Okay.
I don't think so.
Good. You adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We are adjourned. Thank you, LTV, Michael. Appreciate it very much, Jody.
Thank you, Jody.
You're welcome.
Eric, Marco, Will.
Okay, Jameson, thank
everybody.
you for sitting tonight.
Jameson,
Much
for filling in.
appreciated.
It's good to see you.
Good to see you guys.
Okay.
Happy holidays.